Hello everyone and good afternoon. Salam Malaysia Madani, Salam Sabah Maju Jaya, Salam JPN Sabah Sepakat Sabah Hebat. Welcome to our first Magic, Making Learning Great, Impactful and Creative Learning SPM Series 2023. So before we begin, let us start with the recitation of Doa.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya Allah, Ya Rahim. Praise be to God, the Lord of the worlds. Peace and blessings be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions and for those who followed his example till the judgment day. We express our gratitude to you for allowing us to attend the Magic Learning SPM series entitled Writesync, Create Your Story workshop on this auspicious occasion. Ya Allah, we ask you for the safety of our religion and the welfare of our body. O Allah, Lord of the implementing authority, make the days that we have gone through, starting with your mercy, continue with your blessing, and end with thy forgiveness. And also make the days that we have gone through with guidance and end with victory of excellence. Ya Allah, show us guidance and adjust our path and ways to achieve happiness and glory. Let us listen to people who like good things. Let us avoid doing the bad and evil things. O Allah, bless our life in this meeting and gathering and prevent us from harm and unfortunate event. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين تقبل الله منكم.
Salutation I bid to Mr. Ahmad Taufik bin Muhammad Tahir, our speaker for today, Ms. Felly Umbul as our moderator, representatives from Sabah Education Department, representatives from District Education Office, heads of English panel, English teachers, ladies and gentlemen. We will present to you what magic is all about. Focus to the screen and behold, it's magic time. So that's a little bit about the program, and we hope this will help all our viewers to gain knowledge and heighten their skills. For our information, an attendance link will be given in the comment section at the end of the session. It will also be recorded in the SPL KPM. Before we begin our workshop, I would like to give the floor to our moderator for today, Ms. Felly Umbul, an English teacher from SMK Gunsanad 2, Keningau. The floor is yours, Felly.
Thanks to our beautiful MC for today, Miss Alicia Nicolette, language SISC Plus from Penampang. All right, so Salam Malaysia Madani, Salam JPN Sabah, and also Sepakat Sabah Hebat. Greetings to all of you. I hope everyone is doing great. I'm doing great myself here too. So welcome once again to our second magic, making learning impactful and creative workshop series. So I'm Felly Umbul from Keningau, your moderator for today. So hi viewers, thank you so much for participating. I'm sure educators from different districts are here, especially English teachers. Maybe they are also from other states. Let me see at the live chat box. Oh, there's from Penang. Hi, Munira. We also Miss Nolia. Hi, Susie. Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. Maybe they are also from teachers who are non-optionist teachers. Thanks so much for joining. Please do drop your comments and say hi and where you're from. We would like to see where you're from too. You can just drop a comment, possible for our workshop today. I'll try catching up, all right? Exercising my eyes, scrolling up and down, okay? So testing whether I'm still in par with our youngsters nowadays. So, they're very good at this, scrolling down very fast. So this is our second online workshop for our Magic series. It's a collaboration with Sabah Education Department with 5 language SISC Plus, okay, from Penampang. Anybody from Penampang here? And we have from Keningau. We also have from PITAS. So they should be given credits, okay, for this, as our SISC Plus have been going through a lot in making this platform for all English teachers a meaningful, knowledgeable rendezvous. All right, so sit back and relax. It's free seating for everyone, so no need to rush. And all of you are eligible to upgrade your to first class. So therefore, I'm sure you'll manage yourself for a first high class tea, okay? High tea, or maybe at an hour like this, you're having your first class lunch. You can also add on a popcorn or as your side menu. So welcome on board, everybody. Thank you for watching and thank you for participating. So before we are to set off, I would like to remind you to ask any questions if there are any curiosity. So the live chat box is at your service. All right, so feel free to ask. For your information, Pitongot, Pitas, Keningau, Tawau, and Pinampang, they have carried a workshop online based on assessment in language learning previously. So for teachers who did not get to catch up on the video, you can watch it by just typing Magic Series #1 assessment in language learning. All right. So prior to the amazing support of teachers and SPM, which is only a few months away, Sabah Education Department has taken a prompt initiative collaborating with our hardworking SISC Plus to come up with another amazing idea to help pave our way for a great insight workshop. So educators and my lovely viewers, when we are talking about writing, I'm sure there are outstanding pupils, all right, our students of ours who have extensive and broad knowledge. Is it for the ones who really are in dire of help to get them to start writing? So I'm keen myself to know what our speaker has to assist us on this. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our distinguished speaker for today, humbly known as Top. All right. So an informal occasion as Mr. Ahmad Taufik. Where is he? Yes, this is Mr. Ahmad Taufik Muhammad Tahir. So I hope everyone will be at ease. I'll be regarding him as Mr. Ahmad Taufik, but in interval times, I might slip off with his nickname Top. So please forgive me in advance. So Top is an English teacher currently teaching in SMK Agama Datu Mustapha. He's an experienced teacher with a strong track. He also holds distinguished roles as master trainer for language training. He's also a district level English task force member and currently as heads of English panels. And in 2001 to 2022, he has completed his master and is also a chevening scholar with a master education in TESOL from the University of Glasgow in Scotland. So when we hear about Scotland, it's like, oh, that's where Harry Potter and his comrades started off being famous, right? So to continue, he also strived to leverage the prestigious scholarship for global networking and is committed to enhancing English language teaching through collaborative projects locally and globally, so as to drive professional developments among educators. So oh, where's Top? He's still hiding?
Hello, everyone. Hi.
Oh, okay. So here is Top. How are you, Top?
I'm great. How are you, Val? Excited?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great as well. So I think Top, I think it's time for me to pass the floor to you. So the floor is all yours. I'll be at the backstage.
Okay, thank you, Val. Before that, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone who is present for this session. Okay, I think some of you are live from YouTube watching this webinar. First of all, I would like to say thank you for this opportunity to share my experience and also some of the things that I did with my students in my classroom for teaching Form 5 students and SPM basically. And also thank you to Fel Okay, that's why we have been discussing previously. We don't have to be very formal because that's why that's why uh, she's calling me top. So I prefer to be called as that one lah, because I feel that we don't have to be very formal in this session because I'm basically about to share my experience with you. Perhaps some of the things that I'm going to share will be beneficial to you. So hopefully you will stay tuned until the end of this webinar. Okay, allow me to share my slide with you before I start. Can you see the slide? Now? Do you see the slide? No? Oh, okay, nampak sudah. Okay. Alright, so basically, I'm going to start right away. So in our session today, basically, I'm going to share with you the contents from the classroom activities that I do in order to help students, basically SPM students, in order to perform better or write better, especially in paper 2, okay, which is the writing paper. And also, I'm going to share with you some of the teaching strategies for all 3 parts in paper 2 SPM. And also, I would like to highlight some of the different differentiation techniques that I did with my students. Okay. All right. So basically, without wasting further time, this, as we know, teaching from 5, these are the things that we have to cover for writing paper for SPM. There are 3 parts to this paper. The first one is short communicative message. Okay, the question that comes out in this section is actually email, and then guided writing, which usually ask the essay, and also extended writing tasks. As we know, there are 4 formats that are usually asked in part 3 of the writing paper. Which one? The first one is report, review, article, and lastly story. But only 3 of these will come out in SPM examination. Okay, but before I start, I usually informs my student that learning English language these days is basically just like playing online games. And then if you see on the screen here, and the slides that I have, these are actually the 6 levels of CFR framework. And interestingly, for each part of the paper, from part 1, part 2, and part 3, the questions have been designed based on the intended CFR level. So that's why I keep emphasizing to them, like when you are, like students and then teenagers, they are online game players, right? And then I try to take this as an analogy to help them understand that learning language is basically learning, it's just like skill. So in order to enhance their language learning skills, they have to be strategic. Okay, I think that's the same thing that is emulated in our SPM uh, paper for paper 2, in a way that the level that is asked for email is actually A2 wastage, and for part 2 is actually B1, and then for part 3 is B2, referring to the vantage level. Okay, so I'm going to discuss with you the short communicative message, um, which is basically an email, and the intended level for email is CEFR A2. So we know that CEFR A2, the level is quite low. So this is the time where you have to always remind your students not to use bombastic language, because uh, as we progress, then we are going to see why. Okay. So as we know, for the email part, it only specify 80 words. Students should not write. It's not like should not write more than 80 words. The amount of words that they have to cover in email should be around 80 words. Okay, and then the email is usually intended for family or friends. Okay, so far nothing formal yet, which is also a possibility. And also the like I said, intended safer level is actually A2 level. Okay, every year I will usually, for March test, usually at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of the term, I will always use the actual SPM paper as my diagnostic test for my Form 5 students. So the same like this year, I asked my students from March or April test, I asked them to answer the question for SPM question, and this came out last year for 2022 SPM, which is receiving an email from your friend Diana, who plans to help a classmate, Julia, move into her new house. And then the email went as, "Hi, Julia and her family are moving into their new house this Sunday. We should lend them a hand. Let's go together. When should we meet and what time works best for you? I'm still thinking about how we can help them. Any ideas? Should we bring anything? Let me know what you think, Diana." So this was the question for SPM 2022. And then, as we know, I think all Form 4 and Form 5 teachers are quite familiar with this rubric. Okay, so basically, throughout all three parts, part 1, part 2, and part 3, we have been exposed with this rubric back in the training before. So basically, in order to score 5, I will only be focusing on the full mark of 5. So for content, in order to be awarded 5, okay, as we know, the content must be relevant and the target reader is fully informed. So I think since this is not, this has been published before, and then teachers actually can have access.
Hi, Top.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, can you
Okay.
please present your slide? It stays on a static place.
Oh, static. Is it
Yeah.
static still?
Could you please enlarge it? Ah, yes. Thank you so much.
Like this. Okay. Okay. Do you see how? Okay. Alright. So basically, for content to be awarded 5, the content must be relevant and the target reader is fully informed. So always make sure your students understand who the target reader is, because I think this is also a common problem with the students, especially knowing that when they receive the question, when they read the question, they straight away answer the question without knowing the purpose of writing. So it is quite important to help them understand the target reader, who will read the essay and also the email. Okay, and for CA, basically for email, we are looking for the correct tone. Okay, the question is actually evaluating whether the students are using the correct tone and also informal register. So if it's aimed to friends and family, students must be able to use the informal tone. The same thing with organization. So basically, organization is the layout of the essay or the email. We are usually, they will be assessed for organization. Students will be assessed on how they use simple connectors and also limited number of cohesive devices. So when we look at the term limited number of cohesive devices, so this brings question into our mind. So how many is considered as limited number? So I usually tell my students, if they are able to incorporate 3 to 4 cohesive devices appropriately, I think it will be sufficient. And last but not least, that's the reason why I said in email, we don't really encourage students to use bombastic language, I think, because if we look at these 3 elements, there are no merits for good vocabulary, because it specifies here that in order to get 5 marks for language, students only should be able to use basic vocabulary, simple grammatical form, and also while errors are noticeable, meaning can still be determined. Okay, so as we know, these are the 4 content points for the email. Then students, in order to get to be awarded 4 or 5 marks for content, students should be able to answer where should we meet, what time works best for you, and also any ideas of how they can help Julia move, and also whether they should bring anything or not. So what I usually share with my students is these 4 acronym, PATT. So I usually share with them before writing. I think this can also be a pre-teaching activities before you teach them how to write an email. Maybe you can expose them to the purpose of writing an email, which can easily be derived from the question given, whether they have to inform, or whether they have to give opinion, or whether they have to advise or make a choice. So this is also an activity that you can do as for pre-teaching activities. Okay, and then you can also expose them to the different audience that is mentioned in the email. Okay, some exercise book tend to put English friend. So basically, students are going to reply an email from an English friend, or maybe a pen pal. But usually, it always revolves around friend and also cousin or family members. Okay, so that's why I keep on emphasizing these 2 things: the purpose of writing, and then knowing the audience, so that when they start writing the email, they have a general idea of who they are writing to, rather than just simply writing an email without having any purpose and not knowing the audience. And then the tone for email, I think there are 2 or 3, which is informal, semi-formal, and also formal. But so far, when we look at passive questions, the formal email has not been asked yet, but it might come out. We have no idea. Okay, so that's why we have to teach the students about the importance of tone and also the tense. Okay, so all these present tense, past, future, I think these are some of the activities that you can do for pre-teaching the email. Okay, I would like to share with you the findings that I did. Actually, for my panel, I established this section analysis template, and then the template automatically generates the overall performance of my student. So for, like I said, every early term, every year, I will ask my students, not us, I will assess my students using the actual question, and then from there I will get a general idea of where to start. Okay, that's how I kickstart the new year. So from here, for email part, okay, the content, they have no problem so far, because cumulatively 95.4% of them managed to score all 5 marks for content. But as you can see here, the trend is going downward. Okay, for the CA, not all of them have mastered the communicative achievement, which refers to the tone of the email and also the use of informal register. And also the organization part, they are still lacking here and there for their connectors and also cohesive devices, and also the language. Okay, language here is the lowest one, which is 89.7%. Okay, so let's review back the criteria of communicative achievement. So here, the focus is on the correct tone and informal register. Okay, what can we do with our students in order to activate their schemata about using informal register in email? So basically, you can do an activity like this. And this is what I did with my students, in a way that I provide them with sample answer. The sample answer does not really have to be very complete, because the goal here is to expose them to different types of informal register. So as you can see here, I've come up with a very short a response about the question just now. Hey Diana, thanks for thinking of me when it comes to helping Julia move. You know I'm always up for an adventure. Count me in. Moving might not be the most glamorous activity, but with our sense of humor and teamwork, we can turn it into a hilarious experience. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get down to business. Regards, Shasha. So with this activity, there are a lot of things that you can teach the students actually. Okay, for instance, okay, you can ask them to identify, in their opinion, what are the informal registers that can be found in the sample. Okay, the first one is the use of thanks for thinking of me. Actually, the appropriate answer is the use thanks. Okay, I will explain after this. And then, you know, I'm always up for an adventure. This is also an example of an informal register. Okay, another one is count me in. Okay, this is also considered as an informal register. And also, last but not least, I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get down to business. Okay, so this is very interesting activity I did with my students because they all come up with various interpretation of informal register. But once we expose them to the variety of informal registers, I'm sure they will have general idea what to include when they are writing their email. Okay. So thanks for thinking of me. The word thanks is commonly used in casual conversation. That's why I keep emphasizing to my students, if possible, for email, you don't really have to be very formal. You don't, instead of saying thank you, just simply use thanks for thanks because it's commonly used in casual conversation. And then we already know that in email, especially, that's why I think the importance of reminding them the PATT format just now, the purpose of the email, who the audience is, because by knowing the audience, the students can adjust their writing skill by using informal register. The second one is also I'm always up for an adventure. This is also a colloquial expression. When used in this context, it basically conveys the sender's willingness to participate in helping Julia move. Okay, and also count me in. It's also a colloquial expression. Okay, which basically means an informal way to express willingness or agreement to participate. And last but not least, also the use of idiomatic expressions. Okay, so some of our students, they are very obsessed with using idioms in their essays, right? So I inform them you can only use idioms, appropriate idioms, in using the right context, whether in email or also in story. I think that's the safest bet lah. You can use idiomatic expression, especially in email and also story. Okay, now moving on to organizations. Okay, let's recap back. Organization, in order to be awarded 5, students must show ability to use simple connectors and also limited number of cohesive devices. Okay, what are the activities that you can do prior to teaching them? By simply exposing them the coordinating conjunction. Okay, with my weekly students, I always remind them to create sentences using coordinating conjunction. The fanboys. Okay, maybe this also can be pre-writing activity. Okay, exposing them to different all these coordinating conjunction, fanboys, and then when they are ready, okay, when they have mastered these fanboys, you can also move on to teach them the subordinating conjunction, which is the better or sophisticated conjunction compared to the fanboys, okay, such as although, because, since, while. So maybe for language awareness lesson, you can teach the students how to use connectors and conjunction. And also you can, like I said just now, you can also come up with a ready-made material for the question. Like this is what the one that I show in informal register just now. You can also modify it in order to fit the purpose, which is to expose them to the various connectors and cohesive devices. So when you want to teach them connectors and cohesive devices, you can simply come up with ready-made materials like this. So it doesn't have to be very long, as long as because you have to remember the goal is to expose them to connectors and cohesive devices. So after you distributed this sample activity or this sample email, you can just ask them to discuss and brainstorm in their opinion, which are the connectors and cohesive devices. And afterwards, you can ask them to compare and contrast with their partners and also with other groups. Okay, like for instance, what I did with my students, I gave them this activity, this email, and then I asked them to identify the connectors and the cohesive devices. Okay, these are the sample answers. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Okay, for example, and also additionally, then, after, if. So these are the obvious connectors and cohesive devices. So when we refer back to the rubric just now, in order to score 5 for organization, the rubric simply mentions 2 elements. The first one is simple connectors and limited number of cohesive devices. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, with the use of 8 connectors and cohesive devices in the sample, this will warrant them a full mark of 5 in terms of organization. Okay, and then you can just ask them to simply put a tick on the connectors and cohesive devices that they have identified. Okay, so that's why the sample just now that I showed, there are 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I think it's more than enough to be warranted 5 marks for organization, because it fulfills the criteria of using limited number of cohesive devices appropriately, as well as using simple connectors appropriately. Okay, now that we have covered the content, the communicative achievement, and also the organization, I'm going to share with you some of the ways to organize the email. Okay, the first one, the start is very easy because like any other email, it is important to teach the students to put the greeting first, and then to respond to the task, and then to cover the content. So if there are 3 contents, they should address all these content points, and lastly to conclude. So this is the step, and then when you want to develop the email, you can use this ECE step. Okay, the first E implies emphasize. Okay. Emphasize what? Okay. After this, I'm going to show you what are the things that need to be emphasized when developing the email. The second one is, of course, yeah, when you have to develop the email, you need the content. So the content comes in the middle, and also the elaboration part. But when I did this activity with my students, some of them prefer not to include elaboration on the basis of the 80 words, and then some of them even went on to great length to count the number of words for the email, because they are so afraid they will be penalized for writing more or less than 80 words. And then I said it's okay. The word limit is there just for guidance. Okay, because we have to remember the length of an email or the length of the essay does not necessarily reflect the what they call the marks. Okay, it doesn't mean that the more you write, the more marks you will get. Okay, all right. So I would like to highlight more about the emphasize. So emphasize here refers to any technique in order to uh, how do I say? In order to cue the reader what the paragraph is going to be like. So you can include here cohesive devices under the emphasize. You can include also topic sentence. Okay, and also you can put transitional phrases under this emphasize column. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to organize the email. Okay, so the first step the first step is greeting. So I put here the emphasized column, the content column, and also the elaboration column. So for the first step, which is greeting, they don't really have to put anything under the content column and also under the elaboration column. They simply can put hi Diana, hey Diana, okay? And then the second step is to respond to the task. So for SPM 2022, I noticed that the question was about the subject matter of the question was actually helping a friend move into a new house. So you teach the students to emphasize, okay, uh, the response, okay, by using this one. First of all, I'm so happy to hear that Julia and her family are finally moving into the new house. Okay, so basically this is the subject matter. I put it under content, and then if the students want to elaborate further, you can put it under the elaboration column. It's a great idea to go together to help them this Sunday. And also, if students do not want to put anything to emphasize here, it is also possible. Basically, they start with Hyena and then they jump straight into content. But since we are training them in class, we can just simply put this transitional phrase first of all, okay, by responding to the task. Okay, the next step is content one. Okay, another transitional phrase which is before that. Okay, so content one refers to the location, right, where they should meet. So we should meet up at a small cafe down the road called PLEAS Cafe. So the emphasis here is that before they start helping Julia move into the new house, they should meet up at a small cafe down the road called PLEAS Cafe. And then you can simply put just a short elaboration or extra details to support content one. We can take our breakfast here. Okay, moving on to the next one is content two. Okay, still this can about the time. These three phrases, this phrase about the time is actually an emphasis of content two. So it serves as a topic sentence, even though it's very short. Okay, but it is effective because it guides the reader that the student is about to answer content two. 10 in the morning is perfect for us to meet because it will open by then. And then the student also decide to utilize another elaboration, which is simply by putting it won't be crowded. Okay. Okay, the next content is about any ideas of how to help them. Okay. So to emphasize here, the emphasis here is referring to the personal opinion of the students. Okay, so you can teach them to use this word personally, okay, which is to emphasize the opinion of the student. The content given here is I have an idea to help them, which is by offering to move their boxes from the vehicle to their houses, to their house. So basically, if the student do not want to elaborate, I think it's okay. But if they want to elaborate, it's also okay. So here we just put here, I'm sure this will make the job easier. Okay, now for content 4, another emphasis, okay, which is the beginning of content 4, an addition. We can buy some fruits and home essentials for Julia as a gift from us. Okay, and then it is supported by another short elaboration. I'm sure they will appreciate it. And then to conclude, lastly, okay, so the function of the word lastly here is to emphasize that the email is ending. Okay, even though there is no content here, but you can also teach the students to summarize the conclusion of the email. If you have other ideas, let me know. Okay, I hope this helps. So basically, this is the step that I teach my students using this template, briefing, response, content, all the content, also conclusion, and how to develop the email using the emphasize, content, and elaborate technique for elaboration. Okay, let's see the difference between when we don't put any emphasis on elaboration. Yeah, let's read together. Okay. Hi Diana, I'm so happy to hear that Julia and her family are finally moving into their new house. We should meet up at a small cafe down the road called This Cafe. Then in the morning is perfect for us to meet because it will open by then. I have an idea to help them, which is by offering to move the boxes from the vehicle to their house. We can buy some fruits and home essentials for Julia as a gift from us. If you have other ideas, let me know. Do you notice that without the emphasis and also the elaboration, something is not right? Okay, I think the communicative achievement is affected because when we read from the greeting to the content, the level of friendliness, I would say, the tone there is quite off. Okay, basically here it's basically jump into the content points without taking care of the tone. That's why by using the emphasis and elaboration, it takes away the formality or the what? How do I say? The un it by including the emphasis and also elaboration, the email sounds more friendly. Okay, friendlier in comparison when we remove the emphasis and also the elaboration. Okay, this is also another activity that I did with my students, from 5 students, but this time I went with the email of 2021 question. So basically, the 2021 question was about suggesting sports club to Gina, and then the same thing that I do. Okay, there were 3 content points. So greeting, hi Gina. Okay, the response, the response. To begin with, thanks for sending me an email. Okay, this one just now is the content. I'm so happy that you asking for my student. So basically, this is an example of a weak student in my class. Okay, first of all, okay, I think you should join photography club because this club is very popular on your school. Okay, personally, okay, so I can see that this student is using the word personally to emphasize her or his opinion. You really good on taking a picture. So content 2 was basically about why you recommend this club to Gina. Okay, personally, you really good on taking a picture. It will make people happy to watch your career. Okay, so even though there are some grammatical errors here, but remember we are uh, training them on how to develop their email. There are many things you can learn from this club. I think this whole sentence, there are many things you can learn from this club, can also be the topic sentence, okay, under the umbrella of emphasize. So by using there are many things you can learn from this club, the student is actually trying to emphasize the benefit, which is also the content point for this question. One of that is you can improve your snapping skills for taking a beautiful picture. Okay, you also can make a new friend there. And then the word lastly is used to emphasize that the email is ending. If you have any question, just let me know. I hope this helps. So basically by training the students using this technique, at least they will be utilizing the time during the actual examination. And then once they completed this template, they can simply rewrite it as in a proper paragraph. This is another sample. I think this is a much better student than the first one. So, dear Gina, the response. To start with, I am delighted that you want my opinion to decide which club to join. I guess you I think missing here, right? I guess you know I'm a sports freak. So in my opinion, okay, the use of in my opinion here is to emphasize his or her opinion. You should try to join the cross country club. Okay, this club doesn't need any particular equipment except a pair of joggers. So this is the content point, which is the club that is suggested, and this elaboration here is the details in order to support the content point. So the reason is, I think that you like a sport that can make your adrenaline rush. Okay. The climbing route will make you go wild because of the excitement. Okay, so the emphasis here is on the first reason why Gina should try cross-country club. And then as a result, okay, so here the use of transitional phrase of, I think this is also one of the connectors or cohesive device. As a result, so the student is able to use cause and effect. As a result, you will be more patient because of the climbing path that gets more difficult. You can also improve the communication skills if you join the club. And lastly, if you want me to suggest more sports club, just let me know. I hope this will help you a lot. So basically, this is the technique that I did with my students by using the template, using past questions and also state trials from 2021 and 2022. Okay, so to summarize, okay, so the 20 marks for email actually encompass 8.3 marks out of 25 because as we know, out of the, even though this represents 20 marks, okay, but once we shrink it to according to the weightage, the email is actually easy to score. Okay, students should be able to score 20 out of 20 because the level is only A2, and then I can simply we can simply tell our students actually 8.3 marks out of 25 are already in their hand. Okay, and also always remind students to do it first, not last minute. Why I keep on emphasizing do it first, not last minute? Because remember, part 1 evaluates students' ability to use A2 level. So once it, I'm just afraid that when they do it last, they are not, especially the students, they are not able to lower their level to A2. Okay, because from my students, the trend is that what they only focus on part 3, because when we mark our paper, we have to remind ourselves that we are looking at their level. So the expectation is that for email, the level is lower, A2. For part 2, students must be able to show evidence that they are able to use the B1 level and then so on with part 3, which is B2 level. I put here no merits for sophisticated vocabularies because like we see just now under the language rubric, you can only, students are awarded for using basic vocabulary appropriately. And use contractions and informal registers because this is the time for you to use in email because it's informal, and also include fanboys and a few cohesive devices. Okay, so this summarizes the part 1 sharing session. So now I'm going to move on to part 2, direct writing. As we know, part 2, the question that is asked is usually an essay, and it is important to remind the students that whatever skills or ability techniques that they have used in part 1, they should increase their level to fulfill the CFR B1 level, okay, which is independent threshold. Okay, still using the same SPM question 2022. Okay, your class has been talking about the various cultural traditions. So the question last year was about the subject matter was actually about cultural traditions, and okay, there are 3 content points here, which is represented by the bullet. Some cultural traditions as a practice, why it is important to appreciate our cultural traditions, and also ways to encourage young people to keep the traditions alive. So if you want to dissect all these 3 content points, okay, the question, some cultural traditions, can actually refer to students' personal experience. It's almost like an anecdote. So I also noticed that when I analyzed the previous question, SPM 2021, the question was about an experience of a random act of kindness that they experience. So I'm not sure if this is true, but my theory is that in the first bullet, the question will somehow talk about personal experience by the student. And then the second bullet, it will cover reasons, okay, reasons, okay, or importance, okay, like this one, why it is important to appreciate our cultural tradition. And the third bullet usually asks about strategies, ways, okay, like this one, ways to encourage young people to keep traditions alive. And as usual, okay, I will only be focusing on the 5 language, okay, but I'm sure all of you who are joining our webinar session, I'm sure you are already familiar with the rubrics, okay. The same thing here. In order to get 5 marks for content, it must be relevant. The target reader is fully informed. So when we look at the question just now, okay, the target reader is actually the teacher, right? So always train our students to know who they are writing to, okay, and then the purpose of writing the essay. And then when we look at the communicative achievement, now the focus, in order to get 5, students' essay must be able to hold target readers' attention. Okay, sometimes from my experience, with my marking of my student script, basically there can only be two, negatively or positively. So when it's holding the target reader's attention negatively, so basically we as teachers are so fixated in with our students' grammatical errors. But positively, students will score well in their communicative achievement. It's for the right reason, meaning that the essay that they produce has almost no error. And then when we look at the organization, now we are slowly moving from simple connectors and a limited number of cohesive devices into a variety of cohesive devices. And we also start to look at the layout of the essay, and it must be well organized and also coherent. And if you notice for the language, okay, the additional rubric here is the ability to use a range of complex grammatical forms. So in the email just now, the focus is only using simple grammatical forms. Now, this is the part 2, this is the part that I usually tell my students, if you want to start showing off, this is the part. But don't go all out in part 2 yet, go all out in part 3. And also, we expect to see some use of less common lexes, and perhaps there are also evidence of occasional appropriate use. And then this was the performance of my student for part 2. Like I said, every year I will use the actual SPM question in order to self-diagnose my students' writing ability. So if you notice here, they are very based from the template that I've developed for my panel. So the content here is only 71.7 from this question, okay, about some cultural traditions that are still practiced. So 71.7, and then communicative achievement. This is the part that I am trying to hone, okay, because 51.1% of them successfully mastered the communicative achievement of part 2. Organization 55.1, they still need more improvement, and also the language 52.3. Okay, so this is also another I would say entertaining and very amusing content sample activity to practice content. Okay, so in this activity, you can just simply ask them to come up with like one line sentence in order to answer the content. Okay, they don't really have to come up with the actual essay, but you give them the content points and then ask them to come up with a variety of answers. Okay, for instance, like this one. Okay, I got one student, okay, who do not really know the term for kuda kepang, layang-layang, and guli. So they simply put, there are various cultural traditions in Malaysia, namely kuda kepang, layang-layang, and guli. And then I said, why do you use kuda kepang, layang-layang, and guli? They said like, sir, we don't have dictionary. And then we do not really know what is meant by the Malay words. So as we know, in English language, once the student uses a Malay term without any explanation, we don't accept the answer, right? Unless it is specified here, like Uda Kepang is some sort of traditional games, okay, like layang-layang and guli. So that's why we reject that content. Okay. This is for content 2. Okay, why it is important to appreciate cultural traditions. Okay, students, okay, better students can easily score the content lah. Okay, I believe that this is crucial. It is crucial for us to appreciate our cultural traditions because it can fortify the bond between the people in our country. And then I also noticed the use of fortify. Yeah, I think this is a good word, which is a synonym of strengthen. Then, so that's why when you practice this, when you do this content practice, you can also at the same time incorporate synonyms and then the use of less common lexes. Okay, and then for content 3, reasons why young people should keep the traditions alive. So therefore, we must encourage young people to keep the traditions alive by educating them. Education goes a long way, especially through practicing and implementing them in daily life. So actually for this webinar, I have modified this sentence a little bit because some of because of the grammatical errors, but these are the responses that I get from my students. Okay, and then I gave it yes. Okay. So I think for essay for part 2, this can also be the while activity when you are teaching before you teach the essay. Okay, let's recap back. So the communicative achievement, the idea is to hold target readers' attention. This is also another sample activity about communicative achievement. Okay, teaching the students the difference between formal and informal tone. Okay, for this webinar, I want to focus on the difference between formal and informal tone. Because sometimes the students, when they know that when they are about to write an essay to a teacher, sometimes they get confused whether they say like, sir, do we use informal tone or formal tone? So I think this activity is also good to teach them the difference between formal and informal tone. And they really had fun with this because from my part, I come up with like all the slangs that I can get and then put it as informal as it can. Okay, and they only have to determine whether it's formal or informal. Like this one is the same content but different tone. Malaysia has many different cultures, each with its own special traditions that are still growing strong. So obviously this is formal. And then the informal version is, I'm sure that you know Malaysia's got some seriously cool cultural stuff going on. Okay, so teachers, you can actually design your own materials by coming up with the same idea but different intonation and different tone. One is formal and one is informal. Another sample. People in Malaysia still celebrate important occasions like Eid Mubarak, Chinese New Year, and Deepavali with a lot of enthusiasm. Okay, we know this is formal, right? But for this purpose of the activity, for the objective, you can transform it into an informal version. We are talking about all traditions that are still rocking the same. Okay, you've got Hari Raya Idul Fitri, Chinese New Year, and Deepavali. So from the get-go, when the students see this, they had fun when they first read the sentence because it's quite informal. Okay, and then at least it also exposes them with the difference between formal and informal tone. And then you can also create a simple sentence like these events also help Malaysians come together and understand each other better. Also, at the same time, while teaching them formal and informal tone, you can also incorporate subtly the use of compound sentence, like in this example. Okay, so while they also practice the tone at the same time, it also includes element of different types of sentences. These parties are still popping, bringing folks from all walks of life together. Okay, so immediately they will know that which one is formal, which one is informal. So for differentiation technique, okay, maybe for the better students, you can come up with their own version. Okay, this is the for this activity I usually do with my average student and also lower students because they don't have to produce the informal tone or the formal tone. But this is also another activity that you can do with your students who have better proficiency level. For instance, like this one. Okay, write one. Maybe you can come up with one paragraph using very informal tone, like this one. But hold up, how do we make sure the young kids keep the traditions alive? Okay, easy peasy. Let's get this stuff in schools. Spice up the curriculum with some cultural flavor. And hey, we're living in the digital age, so let's use Instagram, TikTok, and whatever's hot right now with our awesome traditions. Let the youth rock the old school vibes with a modern twist. Okay, so you can create your own sentence as well using this informal tone. And then the activity is you can ask the students to dissect. Maybe instead of asking them to come up with the formal tone, maybe you can divide this sentence into and then ask different pairs to come up with their own version of formal tone. Okay, it definitely is going to be a very interactive because students get to write their own version, and then once they come up with their formal with their own version, teachers you can simply just combine which sentence the best sentence into one complete paragraph, right? Or maybe you can also switch it. Instead of using the informal tone, maybe you can ask them to, like switch it up. Like you come up with the formal tone and then you ask them to come up with the informal tone. But this is actually the formal tone from the previous paragraph. Okay, we see like, but hold up, how do we make sure the young kids keep the traditions alive? Easy peasy. Let's get this stuff in schools, spice up the curriculum with some cultural flavors. Okay, and then this is the formal version. To ensure the continuity of our cultural heritage among the younger generation, we can integrate these traditions into educational settings. So I think for this one, obviously this is very proficient students with better proficient English language skill, right? Because they are able to translate the informal sentence into formal sentence. So, and then as you can see here, moreover, in this digital age, platforms like Instagram and TikTok provide an opportunity to exhibit these traditions, allowing the younger demographic to harmonize conventional values with a contemporary twist. So that basically is the formal tone for this one. Okay, and hey, we're living in the digital age. Okay, so teachers, I would like to encourage you to use this differentiation technique in order to expose students to the informal tone and also versus formal tone. And at the same time, you can kill two birds using one stone, which is by highlighting the difference, the different types of sentence structure. Okay, because if you still remember under the rubric for language, the emphasis in order to get 5 is students' ability to use simple and complex grammatical structure. So basically, this is also important. Okay, this is the rubric for organization and language. Instead of evaluating them differently, you can teach them all together using one activity. Okay, right. Now we are focusing on organization and also language. Now, just like the email just now, I would like to share with you the same step that I did, but a little bit modified for how to organize and develop the essay part. When I'm talking about the development, I'm focusing on the paragraph. Okay, so the step is easy. They just have simply to respond, okay, to each paragraph. Okay, sorry, respond to the question, and then identify the content and then conclude. So since the organization always entails proper, how do I say, proper planning, you can ask the students to uh, plan their essay by following this step, which is they have to respond, they have to cover the three content points, and then they have to conclude. So for me, this translates into 5 paragraphs. And the same thing, organization, ask them, teach them to emphasize something at the beginning of their paragraph, and then the second sentence will be about the content, and the third sentence will be about the elaboration. So I'd like to, those who have just joined our webinar or you have stayed from the very beginning, so the emphasis here is it can encompass a lot of things. For instance, transitional phrase, you can use under emphasize, you can also use subheadings, you can also use topic sentence, okay? All of that can come under emphasize. Okay, so usually for my weekly students, I will ask them for every paragraph, okay, they will have one sentence representing emphasize, one sentence representing content, and one sentence representing elaboration. Okay, now I'm going to show you a sample. Okay, the sample is not, it's good, actually it's good, but I just want to highlight this technique that I did with my students. So this is also a fun activity that you can do with your students by using colors or highlighters, different colors and highlighters representing different um, ways of development. Okay, so sorry, this is not the response. This is the response. Sorry, the first step is the response. So this is the introduction. Malaysia boasts many different cultures, each with its own special traditions that are still going strong. So when you first give this introduction, you ask them to highlight which one is related to which one. Is related to which one? Is it the emphasize column? Is it the content column? Or is it the elaboration column? Okay, and then for content one, okay, content one is about some traditions that are still practiced in Malaysia, right? Okay, so I gave them this sentence. People in Malaysia still celebrate important occasions like Eid Mubarak, Chinese New Year, and Deepavali with a lot of enthusiasm. And then I also purposely put one sentence as an elaboration, which is these events also help Malaysians come together and understand each other better. So basically for content one, they have two sentences, one representing the content, one representing the elaboration. Okay. Okay, now for content two, okay, the color is different. Okay, look at the yellow phrase, appreciating our cultural traditions is essential. This is what I meant under the emphasize um, column. So basically, when students use this appreciating our cultural traditions is essential, the students is actually emphasizing that the third paragraph is about the second content point. Okay, so without this sentence, I think like the cohesion, the coherence of the whole paragraph will be affected. Okay, as they connect us to our roots and help us understand our heritage. So this one, you can also teach the students that this particular combination of phrases, they all together, they all make up for the content. And then you notice that there is no elaboration here, right? So in this sentence, I purposely put another um, emphasis, which is an addition of idea. So you can explain to your students the use of moreover in this sentence is not elaboration, but it's an emphasis. Okay, like I said, under the column of emphasize, there are a wide variety of things that you can put under. It can be transitional phrase, it can be cohesive devices, it can be topic sentence. Okay, and this is another example of using the emphasize, using one word for the emphasis. Okay, they provide a sense of identity and belonging, pride and respect for our past. So basically, this is the second content point for the second content point for this particular content, which is about why it is important to appreciate our cultural traditions. Okay, and then how about content 3? As you can see here, I purposely incorporate all 3 colors in content 3. Okay, the first one is to ensure these traditions endure, it is vital to engage young people actively. So all this one particular sentence, I color it using a yellow to represent the emphasis. So basically, like I said, this sentence is important because it emphasizes the transition from content 2 to content 3. So basically, it is like a signpost to the reader that in this paragraph, the student is about to answer content number 3. And then the content comes immediately after the emphasis, which is schools can incorporate cultural education into the curriculum. Okay, and then by arranging workshops and events that showcase traditional practices. So the purple one is a phrase, okay, not a phrase, is phrases or a sentence that represents the elaboration column. You can also do that for conclusion. Okay, in conclusion, I put it as a yellow here because the emphasis is to conclude. Okay, and then cultural traditions need to be appreciated by all Malaysians. Even though technically this is not the content, but to summarize, the overall subject matter of this question is about why cultural traditions need to be appreciated. And then I also put another elaboration because it will bring many benefits to all. Okay, so this is a technique that you can use with your student by using highlighting different colors, using different colors of highlighter. Okay, another for students with better proficiency level, you can also do another differentiation technique, which is by asking them to improve the original version. Okay, so let's see. I've extracted this task 1, the content 1, task 1. Okay, I've extracted content 1 here, and then I want the student to improve the sentence using the emphasize technique, the content technique, and also the elaboration column. Okay, so just ask them to use their own sentence in order to improve the task as a way for differentiation technique. So you can teach them like this. So from a very short paragraph, which consists of 2 sentences, they are able to expand their paragraph. So the emphasis, this is a sentence that represents the emphasis column. In daily life, people in Malaysia still embrace their cultural identity through vibrant celebrations. Okay, and then the students went on to answer the content. Festivals like Eid Mubarak, Chinese New Year, and Deepavali are celebrated with enthusiasm, marking significant moments in cultural calendar. Okay, and then the final sentence. Okay, this actually represent the elaboration column. These events not only evoke joy but also foster unity among nations, enabling them to gain deeper insights into one another's customs and values. Okay, so this is also another differentiation technique that you can do across different proficiency level of students. Okay, another sample activity. Let's improve content 2 by including the elaboration, because this one, it is devoid of elaboration. So how to improve this sentence? Okay, you can ask the students to focus on the first content, the first reason. Okay, so beyond festivities, understanding and cherishing our cultural heritage holds immense significance. So this is like a signpost for the readers to know that, okay, in this particular paragraph, the expectation is the student is going to answer why appreciating cultural traditions is important. And then followed by another sentence to answer the content, which is, by appreciating our cultural traditions, we establish meaningful connections to our origins and heritage. And then the elaboration here is, this in turn instills within us a sense of belonging and pride for our ancestral legacy. So by using this technique, you can also subconsciously teach the students that in one paragraph, they can incorporate at least 3 sentences. And then you can also teach them the variety of the 4 different types of sentence, right? The simple sentence, compound complex, and also the complex sentence. So that's why this is also good to teach them how to expand their paragraph. Okay, so to summarize, guided writing, just like the email, is worth 20 out of 60 marks, and that translates into 8.3 marks out of 25. And then, like I said, I keep on emphasizing, okay, do it second, not last minute, because I'm not sure, but my students keep saying that part 2, when they do their own revision, part 2 always turns out to be the most difficult one. But I keep on telling them that you have to follow the sequence of the question, because part 2 is aimed to the intended level of CFR for part 2 is B1. So do answer the question chronologically. And then also it is important to emphasize to the students, don't use contractions, because the contractions are considered as very informal, not a very informal. It's inappropriately, it is inappropriate to be used in an essay. So I'm afraid that if they start to use contractions in their part 2, it will be underlined. Okay. Okay, and then I will be covering the last part for today's webinar, which is expanded writing. For this webinar, I'm not going to go into details about each of these, but since I'm using SPM 2022 as my sample, so I will not be touching on review. Okay, I will be focusing on article, report, and also story. And just a brief reminder that part 3, the intended level of assessment is CFR B2. Okay, so when we look at this CFR framework, B2 is the vantage point, indicating that students are independent in using English language. And this is the performance of my students using the SPM 2022 questions. So overall, they are capable of answering the content for part 3, but as you see here, it's slowly declining. The CA, if you notice, the communicative achievement, the organization, and the language, all 3 aspects are below 50%. So basically, I have to improve my students' performance for communicative achievement, organization, and also language for part 3. Okay, so if I were to repeat all these activities with my students, I will not be focusing more on content, but maybe I will design more activities to help them perform better in terms of communicative achievement, organization, and also language. So these are the data that I gained from my section analysis template. Okay, now the final activity that I would like to share with you. This is based on my reading from a research. Okay, the research was published by Welsh in 1991. So I also have been implementing this activity. The activity is called PLEAS. So what does this mnemonic stand for? P. P means pick a topic. Pick topic. Then L means list information. Okay. E evaluate point and sequence. For A, activate the paragraph with topic sentence. S, supplying supporting sentences. And lastly, E, end with concluding sentence and evaluate. Okay, so you can read this article. Just type the PLEAS strategy of writing. Okay, this is also one of the uh, uh, intervention that I'm using with my current students. So how do we incorporate this PLEAS strategy into our classroom? Okay, I'm going to demonstrate to you by using the 3 questions from part 3 of SPM 2022. Okay, so this came out last year. The format was an article right away. Do you notice here? You recently saw this notice in a teen magazine. So we know that the target reader is basically teenagers who read teen magazine. So always emphasize to the students that when they are writing an essay, remind them who they are writing to. Okay, because in one way or another, it will help them to remember the audience and also to be careful with their tone. So do you enjoy playing online games? Tell us about an online game you enjoy. Share with us why you like playing online games and explain how you balance your time between playing online games and doing schoolwork. The best article will receive gift vouchers from my Games store. Now write your article. Okay, so we know we can identify here 3 content points that students have to answer, which is an online game that they enjoy, why they like playing online games, and also how they balance between playing online games and also doing schoolwork. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate to you how to incorporate this PLEAS strategy in your classroom. So basically the PLE can also be done through brainstorming session. So that one can be used in a pre-writing classroom. Okay, so the steps are, so the P, okay, P just now refers to pick a topic. So from this question, we have three content points, right? So instead of asking them to cover all 3 content points, let them pick which one they want to cover. So for this webinar session, I'm going to explain to use the first content point as a demonstration. Okay, so let's imagine that our students have decided they want to cover, like, sir, we want to cover the first content point, which is an online game that they enjoy. Okay, so they have picked pick a topic, and then L. L means they have to list down. Okay, if we go back to the slide just now, L means list information. So they have to list information, all information, relevant information that is related with the topic that they have decided to choose to pick, elaborate. Okay, so let's imagine, okay, they have come up with all these sort of online game that they enjoy, which include Mobile Legends, Dota, Minecraft, Among Us, Carrots Restaurant. Okay, and then comes the E step, which is to evaluate the list. So basically, they have to choose one from the list in order to be elaborated as a paragraph. Okay, let's say that among all the information listed in L stage, okay, the students have decided they want to write a paragraph about Carrots Restaurant. So they have decided E. E means evaluate from the list. Then A, this is the part for while writing activity. So A means they have to activate the paragraph using a sentence. Okay, so in this modern world, teenagers love to play online games during their leisure time. So by coming up with this particular sentence, the students have successfully activated content 1. Okay, and then the S means supplying additional information. Okay, when we go back to the slide before, S means supplying supporting sentences. Okay, so after they activate paragraph using the topic sentence, Okay. They supply with additional sentence. Some of the online games are relaxing and some of them are really intense. But so far, uh, in order to be awarded for content one, students must specify an online game that they enjoy, right? So basically, from step A and step S, students have not specified any game. So they can end the sentence by answering the question. I have enjoyed many games, but my all-time favorite would be Carrot's Restaurant. Okay, so basically, in order to answer content one, they have come up with as well three sentences as well, representing the activation stage, the supplication stage, and also the ending stage. So once we combine all these paragraph, okay, it will be like this. Okay, effective cohesive devices. Okay, this one, the suggested activity that I've demonstrated just now, you can also use it in your classroom. And after they have come up with their own paragraph, you can also teach them at the same time about the use of effective cohesive devices. Okay, because if we were to teach the four rubrics individually, it is going to take longer time, right? So why not combine any two rubrics into one lesson? So this is also another sample that you can use to teach students, okay, how to use effective cohesive devices for part 3. Most of my students, they are often confused between the function of simple connectors and cohesive devices. So just to have a general idea, simple connectors, the difference between connectors and also cohesive devices usually lie on their function, in a sense that we use simple connectors to connect sentences, ideas between sentences, while cohesive devices, we use cohesive devices to connect paragraphs to make the paragraphs coherent. Okay, so basically cohesive devices, it is very sophisticated because their function in an essay is to bring cohesion from one paragraph to another. While for connectors, they only function between sentences. Okay, ideas linked between sentences. Okay, so another activity that you can use to teach your students about the use of cohesive device, effective use of cohesive devices, is by giving them a sample paragraph and ask them to identify the cohesive devices. Okay, for instance, here. Okay, some of the online games, you can just simply explain to them why this is considered as cohesive devices, because some of the online games, here you can explain which online game they are referring to. This one is referring to the first sentence here. Teenagers love to play online games. And then you can explain to them why do we understand the context of some of the online games, because it is being referred to in the first sentence. Some of the online games are relaxing and some of them. And then you can also highlight this, them. Why them here is considered as a type of cohesive device, because as we know, there are many types of cohesive devices, right? So the use of pronouns as a reference also serve the function of cohesive device. We tell our students, them here is considered as cohesive device because we understand this is referring to the online games mentioned in front of the sentence. Meanwhile, this is also another cohesive device. I have enjoyed many games, but my all-time favorite would be Carrot's Restaurant. Okay, you notice here, I purposely do not highlight another simple connectors, but because for me, for part 3, the use of but here is does not really guarantee a five marks. Okay, so that's why I don't I discourage my students, not really discourage. I keep reminding the students that when you use fanboys in part 3, those connectors are expected, meaning that if you use it in part 3, it doesn't really have any merits for you because for part 3, we are looking for effective cohesive devices. And then another one, that why this is also called a cohesive device, because we understand the meaning of that. Here is referring to the idea of why this candidate has chosen Carrot's restaurant as her ataupun her or his all-time favorite game. Okay, because it's another character. That is because I really love the relaxing background music, which is called as lo-fi. Therefore, I prefer a quiet ambience so that, okay, cause and effect, it can release my tension and boost my mood. So you can teach this. You don't have to come up with very a long, complete sentence, but maybe for starters or for revision, you can just come up with one content point, one complete paragraph to illustrate one content point, and at the same time, when you're teaching the content point, you can also highlight the cohesive devices. Okay, so like I mentioned, the many differentiation techniques that you can use across different level of proficiency, which is you can just simply teach the weaker students about this, and also for the good students, you can ask them to create on their own or identify on their own, and maybe provide justification. Okay, so now I'm going to cover the same thing about report, which came out last year in 2022, SPM 2022. Okay, we know that all these 3 bullets represent the content point, right? Basically, it was about the English language club in your school visited a local museum. As a secretary, you have been asked to write a report to your principal. So here we know that the target reader is the school principal, and then automatically the communicative achievement will be very formal. Okay, in your report, you must share the details on what made the journey smooth, talk about the new knowledge learned there, and then give reasons why the club should organize more visits like this. Okay, so by using this report question, I'm going to demonstrate to you how to, once again, to use the PLEAS technique using this this report question. Okay, so if you still remember, the first P is pick a topic. So we have 3 content points there. So let's just imagine our students have decided to cover content 3, which is give reasons why the club should organize more visits like this. Okay, now they have to brainstorm the reasons why the club should organize more visits like this, and then maybe they will come up with it's a fun plan for students, and also it will help them to release stress, and also it will be there will be new knowledge learned in an interesting way. So okay, after they have listed the possible reasons of why the club should organize more visits like this, and then they have to evaluate which one is the most important one. Okay, so let's imagine out of these 3 ideas that they have listed in L stage, they want to cover 2 content points this time. Okay, which is fun plan for students, and also new knowledge learned in an interesting way. Okay, so once they have evaluated the information that they have listed in the L stage, now it's time to activate the sentence. Okay, how to activate the sentence? To sum up, the visit was a success and it was a hassle-free experience. Okay, so far this is the emphasis, right? So this is a topic sentence for content number 3. Perhaps the student want to use the final content as the concluding paragraph. Okay, so this sentence activates this content point, and then S. Okay, if you still remember, S means supplying the information or supplying the sentence. Not only it was fun for the students, they also learn new knowledge in an interesting way. So in this sentence, 2 content points have been combined in one sentence. Okay, and then A, the final stage is, E, the final stage, E means end the paragraph, okay, and then evaluate. Okay, hence more visits like this should be organized in the future. Okay, so I'd like to inform you that the PLE always refers to the pre-writing stage. ASE is the while writing stage. So once they have completed the activated the sentence and then supply for the provide supply the sentence after they have activated it and also end the sentence. So once we combine the ASE stage, it will create one complete paragraph. Okay. Okay. Now let's move on to the story question. Okay. I'm not sure about all of you who are present in our webinar now. My students, they really love to answer story, uh, which to my dismay, some of them are really weak in order to write story. So just remind your students when writing a story, what is the purpose of writing a story? You ask them. Okay. Now for me, the purpose of writing a story is basically to entertain. Okay. So if they have the skills to entertain the readers through their stories, then the story question should be excellent for them. Okay. So using the SPM 2022 question, okay, your teacher has asked you to write a story as your homework. The story must begin with the following words. It was the beginning of a new day for Kumar. The place looked. So the first sentence was given, but it was missing. And then there are two additional bullets there. An interesting discovery Kumar made at the place, and also how the discovery changed Kumar's impression of the place. So you see, in SPM, the question for story is no longer straightforward. It's like when you read the first bullet there, an interesting discovery Kumar made at the place. So must the setting was already set up. Okay, in the story, students must have a place, and then the main character was already given, which is Kumar. And in order to be awarded marks for this, students must have interesting discovery. And then also look at the second bullet. How the discovery changed Kumar's impression of the place. Meaning that students' autonomy in writing an essay is governed by these bullets. So even though they are so keen on writing a story, but like they have to be taught all these elements that make a story. Okay. So these are the three content points that students have to answer: the place, looked, okay, discovery, and also how Kumar's impression of the place has changed because of the discovery. So again, I'm going to teach you the same technique, the PLEAS strategy. So let's say students want to come up with a paragraph using the third element, which is an interesting discovery Kumar made at the place. Okay, so they've decided, okay, we are going to come up with one paragraph to answer element 3, which is an interesting discovery Kumar made at the place. And then let's imagine they will brainstorm what are the interesting discovery that Kumar made at the place. So maybe they will come up with photo album, or some of my students, they include another role, which is another character, which is a murderer. And then they also include the animals, corpses, okay. And then for the evaluation stage, so they finally come up with the agreement that they want to, the discovery was actually about a photo album. Okay, and then using this brainstorming session, the PLE, they have to activate their ideas by writing the topic sentence. So since this is element 3, so it's rushing to, not rushing, it's towards the end of the story. Suddenly, Kumar stumbled across a photo album in a beautifully made bedroom. So this sentence activates the content point. Okay, so when target reader is reading this particular line, okay, it almost seems like this is a signpost of what the interesting discovery is. And then the S means supply another sentence to support the topic sentence. When Kumar looked through the album, he realized that the spirit of the evil man was the owner of the house, and then they will end the paragraph with another sentence. He was speechless. Okay, so uh, basically the PLEAS strategy of developing a paragraph is very applicable across for part 3. I think also for part 2, the essay part. Okay, maybe you can try this on your own, and who knows, maybe if you are successful of incorporating the PLEAS strategy in your lesson or in your classroom, maybe you can reach out to me and then share the success story. Okay, and then once they have come up with their own paragraph, maybe you can ask your students to compare with each other and then ask them to present. It will be very interesting. And then as the follow-up activity, you can simply ask them to um, complete their own story. So I'm going to highlight what are the elements of a story. Okay, so basically you can teach your students these 4 elements that make a story. The first one is a story must be written in past tense. Okay, unless it's written in dialogue form, students can use present tense. And then the use of time phrases. So for a story, we don't necessarily have all the cohesive devices. That's why we use time phrases in order to help guide the readers. What happened? So the time phrases inside the story serve as the signpost, okay, to help the readers move, okay, as they go towards the end of the story. Okay, suspense. Okay, for this question, the word, the element that is suitable for the story, I would say is a suspense. Okay, why I put suspense? Okay, because I believe that by incorporating suspense, element of suspense in the story, okay, it will, like the purpose of writing a story is to entertain, right? So imagine a story without suspense. Basically, it's a narrative of Kumar going into a place, finding something, nothing happened there, and then he went back. So it will be very boring, right? So you can train your students to incorporate suspense, but this is subject to change. You can tailor this third element. Maybe you can incorporate comedy, but it all depends on the story. But the idea is to make your story as interesting as possible. And then the fourth element of a story is the incorporation of a dialogue. But be careful not to use too much of a dialogue until the story becomes a dialogue, not a story. So I have a few students who had this idea that a story must include a lot of dialogue, right? And then it ended up the wrong way because the students incorporated a lot of dialogue into their story. Okay, so what are time phrases? Time phrases are expressions that indicate specific points in time, duration. Sorry about that. Expressions that indicate specific points in time, durations, or sequences between events. The importance of time phrases lies in its responsibility, which is to help structure a story, provide a timeline for events, and also guide readers through the plot. Like I mentioned before, there is no specific cohesive devices or uh, simple connectors in order to create a story. These are some of the time phrases that you can teach your students when writing a story. Okay, so remember the story must be coherent because this is part 3, okay, the highest level. So if possible, avoid flashback. Okay, because when the moment a student use flashback, unless that particular student is very good at writing a story, then okay lah. But then usually a story, when you tell a story and you use the time phrases, everything must happen in sequence. Okay, so sometimes the use of flashback will disrupt the coherence of the story. Okay, and these are some of the time phrases that you can use. And this is also you can also find this a list of time phrases in our textbook in chapter 2. Yeah, there are several more examples of time phrases from our English download textbook. Okay, and then as usual, the plot technique. Okay, we are going back to basics using this plot technique. So let's see examples of time phrases using this plot diagram. So the question was already said. Okay, it was the beginning of a new day for Kumar. Dot, dot, dot. Okay, what are the raising action? Maybe you can teach the students to use when Kumar entered the house. So this implies there is a move. The character is moving. So when he moves, okay, the time also moves. Okay, so the word when Kumar entered the house is also an example of a time phrase. And then for the climax, the use of suddenly, again, when Kumar looked through the album, so all these time phrases, they indicate movement. And then for the falling action, after discovering the truth, so we expect that something will be done by the main character. And then the resolution, he went home immediately. So the word immediately here is used effectively to show is used effectively as a time phrase. Okay, why? These are the explanation. So the purposes of time phrases in the sample. So, okay, the introduction was given already in the question. So the rising action, when Kumar entered the house, the time phrase used serve as is effective because it serves as a significant action taking place. And then the use of suddenly. Okay, maybe you can also teach your students to use synonyms. Instead of using suddenly, use out of the blue. Okay, it is effective because it shows dramatic transition. Okay, when Kumar looked through the album, okay, you can. This is also effective as time phrase because it is building anticipation. Because if you look at this, it is already in the climax position. And then after discovering the truth about the evil spirit, so this one is also effective as time phrase because it creates suspense towards the revelation. So we know that the sentence signals the end is nearing. Okay, it is coming. And then he went home immediately. Okay, the word immediately there is also effective as a time phrase. Okay, because the creation of the sense of urgency. Okay, so another differentiation technique that you can do with your with students who have the ability and capability of writing very good story is by again changing a sentence and allow them to let the imagination run free, and then they can come up with their own version while maintaining the essence of the original sentence. Perhaps you can extract one sentence from your students' essay. Like for instance, here, after discovering the truth about the evil spirit, Kumar started to feel sad for the man. He went home immediately and told his neighbors about the truth regarding the haunted house. Okay, I think we all agree that the sentence is I will be thankful if I have students who can write better good sentence like this. But you know, like if you have students with proficient language skills, you can ask them to not translate, how to say, to expand the essence of the sentence by using, you know, like more flowery language. Okay, I don't necessarily endorse the use of flowery language in stories, but like if it helps towards the cohesion of the overall story, if it gives impact to the readers, why not, right? So you can ask them, this is the improved version. Upon uncovering the unsettling truth about the malevolent spirit, Kumar's heart was filled with sorrow for the tormented man. Urgently returning home, this is a time phrase, right? Urgently returning home, he confided in his neighbors, shedding light onto the haunting reality shrouding the house. So, like I said, you can also teach the students about the different types of sentences, from complex, compound, simple, to make sure they are able to incorporate different sentence level. Okay, another one is here. He also told the people to stop spreading stories about the spirit as Kumar knew that the spirit was not evil, but rather he was sad about his daughter. Okay, maybe you can leave this particular sentence or this particular idea and ask your students to rewrite using their own sentence in a better way. Okay, furthermore, he beseeched the community to cease disseminating tales of the malevolent spirit, elucidating that Kumar understood the spirit's true nature, not malevolent but burdened by sorrow over the loss of his daughter. Okay, so these are some of the techniques that you can do with your students for differentiation. Okay, like this is also another for assessment. Okay, instead of asking the students to write lengthy essays, okay, this is what I did with my students. Okay, very simple, but I keep on emphasizing this PTSD, the use of past tense, P, and then the use of time phrase, P, the use of suspense, S, and also the use of dialogue. This is the one that I'm currently using with my Form 4 students. Okay, so every time they use a time phrase, I will put a tick on top of the particular phrase. Okay, for instance, it was a sunny day, because this one, it sets the setting, right? There was a sunny day, so there's a time phrase there. The time setting is set there. The use of however, the use of suddenly, the word luckily, without having a second thought. Okay, so all this actually is, um, is some of the evidence of time phrase used by my student. Okay, another one here is there are two pages actually, but I'll only include the final one. So for the assessment part, you can, like for stories, okay, if they are not capable of using past tense, maybe you can put a cross there saying that limited use of past tense. If they don't use dialogue, maybe you can comment there. Okay, how about suspense? If the story is very boring, maybe you can give suggestions on how to improve. Okay, and then highlight the use of time phrases. I think this is also useful um, uh, for for assessment when you assess your students' essay. Like for instance here, a moment later, this is also an example of time phrase. An old lady opened the door. Okay, there's a grammatical error there. What brings you here, young man? Asked the old lady. The old lady let them enter her house. Coco told her everything that happened just now. So the just now is also considered as time phrase. The old lady called the policeman to find the killer as soon as possible. There's a grammatical spelling error there. Thank you for your kindness, Coco's brother said. Coco will never forget what happened again. So in this particular paragraph, my student was able to use past tense. Okay. Also, there are two dialogues. Okay. Suspense was created. I think you have to read the whole story lah, but the word killer there is there to create suspense and also evidence of time. Okay. So overall, this was the activity that I did with my students. Okay, so I think I've come to the end of our sharing session. Just about time, it's almost approaching 4 p.m. in the afternoon, in the evening. Okay, Felly, are you still with me?
Oh, yes, I am. Thank you so much, Tom, for the informative techniques in crafting your story. So I'm sure educators out there can't wait to use the techniques presented by you. And I'm so excited as well. I really love the part where you lay out the table, where there's a category about emphasize, content, and elaboration. You need to elaborate. It is very simple, but very doable as well. I mean, I'm sure interesting activities actually, but to do to to actually execute the activity is another thing. So when we have this presentation of yours, it's like, okay, let's just copy and paste what you did. So thank you
Yes,
so
definitely.
much, Top.
Okay.
So
Okay.
before
Oh,
that, we have a few questions here from the live chat box. Oh yes, here's from Miss Nolia Atin from Pitas. So her question is, she's just wondering at what minimum writing ability of these three writing tasks should a very weak student achieve to at least get a passing mark for the SPM writing skill?
Okay, so this is a good question because yeah, when like when you're invited for a seminar, we don't necessarily focus on the good students, right? Because they can easily score high marks. But in general, like reflecting on my experience teaching weaker students, they will be able to score at least like the minimum mark of one. But you have to refer to the rubric. Okay, like for instance, when the student is answering the email, okay, the email is the easiest to score because if you look at the language, if they fulfill the criteria in the language, meaning that they have, like even though some of the words or the sentences that they produce were, like almost unfathomable, or maybe it's very, how do I say, unorganized. But as long as they are able to produce at least like one, two, three meaningful sentences, I think we can award them marks. Yeah, but that's why I said like for the email, usually we can be very lenient. But when we go into part two, the session will be not the session. The the leniency will not be as lenient lah. Because you have to follow the rubric. Everything is in the rubric. If you can find evidence of students writing meaningful sentence, I think we can reward them accordingly.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
I hope that answers Ms. Nolia Atin's question. So we have another question from Munira Aina Mokhtar from Penang, all the way from Penang. Hi. Okay, so Cikgu
Hello.
Taufik, are students allowed to use informal voice for part two?
Okay, this one I would say depends because for SPM 2002 we see the pattern is the subject matter being asked is uh, what was the cultural traditions, right? So cultural traditions is the topic itself is already formal. So when students use informal voice, um, I wouldn't say it's not allowed, but if it's effectively used, maybe it will be awarded accordingly. But that's the thing. You have to teach these students to be aware of the genre writing. So if the question calls for a formal tone, so they must be able to use formal tone because as part two, as we go to part two and part three, I think this is also the criteria, one of the criteria that separates the C1, the B2, and the B1 student. So, for instance, like into SPM 2021, part two question, uh, the question asked about random act of kindness. So that one, I think the tone might be can be semi-formal. So I don't think it will be an issue of using informal voice for part two in SPM 2021. But for SPM 2022, the subject matter was a little bit formal, which is about cultural traditions, right? So I think it also depends. Perhaps if there is an example of the informal voice, maybe we can see clearly. But yeah, that's my answer.
So that means in part two, we don't urge don't didn't.
Come again, Felly? I didn't.
So in part two, we
Mhm.
don't urge students to use contraction, is it?
Yes, definitely. Because contraction is very informal. So always remind your students only to use informal in email as well as in story. But if it's in story, make sure it's in dialogue form
All
for
right, thank
contraction.
you.
Mhm.
Okay, I hope that answers Ms. Munira's question. So we have another question from the same person.
Okay.
Another question, but for part
Mhm.
three, write a
Okay.
story. If students are able to use past tense, but the use is inconsistent, how are they assessed?
Okay. Many teachers are like, including me, like English teachers are the Nazis of grammar Nazis, right? So basically, my belief is that okay, if the students are able to use past tense, but it is used inconsistently, use it as a tiebreaker between the banks. Like because if we look at the rubric, there are specific elements to describe part five, right? And also there are specific elements that describe the marks we award for pre. So use the inconsistency of using the past tense to as a tiebreaker. So if you think that the students do not deserve to be placed in five, maybe you can use the inconsistent past tense to place it under in band four.
Okay.
So
So
so you don't
I
necessarily you don't necessarily penalize the students for their wrong choice of past tense because just use it for a tiebreaker. But like I said, always go back to the rubric because everything is there.
All right, thank you. I hope that answers your question, Miss Munira. Okay, so I think if there's any other more questions, you can actually drop down in our live chat box there. However, yes, I agree with what Top has said, and thank you so much for the amazing presentation. It really is a big insight for all of us, and I'm sure for some of us here will actually use these techniques. And I really like the techniques because I've never I've never heard about please before, and it's very doable, and I would like to try it in my classroom as well. So basically, having an input like this gives us a brighter picture of how we educators are to carry it out in our knowledge and techniques. So teachers who couldn't join this workshop today, please do share the link to your friends out there. We would never know that just by sharing this video, it is a blessing to them. So Top, before we end this online workshop, do you have anything to say to our educators and our viewers here before I pass the floor back to our beautiful MC, Miss Alicia?
Yes, definitely. So allow me to take this opportunity to share my experience. Yeah. So as you know, I was one of the Achieving Scholarship recipients back in 2021, 2022. So I would like to take this opportunity to encourage all teachers to apply because the applications for the Achieving Scholarship for 2023-2024 are currently now open. So you only have to write 4 essays. You have to register for free, write 4 essays, and then submit your application before the deadline. And then that's it. You only have to wait for your call for interview if you are selected. But if you are interested to know my journey as a tuning scholar, you introduced at the beginning, right? I furthered my study in University of Glasgow, Scotland. You can listen to this podcast that I did with Ruang Didik. Maybe you can just follow the channel Hive Educators as well, and then you can listen to my podcast there. It's posted Teacher Leadership Unleashed Insights from Achieving Alumnus. Because I learned quite a lot during my 1 year study in the UK. Because I did my Masters of Education in TESOL at the University of Scotland. So the program was quite relevant for us teachers because I get to, observe teachers teaching in educational institution. And then I also get to reflect my every decision that I made. But, before I further my study, everything was gut feeling. I was like, oh, I want to do this type of intervention because I feel that's the best for my student. But when I study there, I have to link theory and then practice. I use my experience as a teacher for almost like 11 years, and then I have to make connections with the current like philosophy behind the theory and all, the work of academia. That's why I can say that I make better decisions after coming back. And then, yeah, I would like all teachers who are present in this webinar to apply for the scholarship. Everything is free; you don't have to pay anything. And then, if you want to listen to my story, you can just search this podcast in YouTube, and then everything is there. So, and
Wow,
then,
thank you.
yes, definitely.
Okay, continue, Tom. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
You have the
Okay.
tone of ending it. You have the tone of it.
Uh, yeah, I was about to end actually. Okay, so that's why all the tips that I've learned, that I've shared with you, that I did in my classroom, that I share with you during this webinar. So most of them were inspired by my experience studying in the UK lah. Because like when you study there, the professors and the lecturers like, why do you do this? What's the rationale behind this? Like you have to justify everything that you do, right? That's why I was like, oh, one of my assignments, I read about the please technique, and then I'm so pleased to use the please technique. So it's very
I am
helpful.
pleased to hear too, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So, those are some of the things that the takeaway value from my experience studying overseas, lah. That's why. So I'm glad this is one way of me giving back to the community through this webinar. Thank you,
All right,
Val.
thank
Back to
you.
you.
All right, thank you so much, Top. Wow, that's his journey during for out. Don't haggle your decision. Don't try to stop. Maybe you would love to try it out and try another new adventure, just like what Top has said. So it's a very, very amazing what he has experienced and trying to reach out to us, sharing his what he has gone through, and I mean, it's a very tremendous journey for Top. So thank you so much, Top. It's really
Thank
hard to get
you.
a person where people like to kind of share for free. Okay, so it's like everything is for free, and then we're getting it for free. So thank you so much, Top. So I think with that, I will now hand over the floor to our MC, Miss Alicia. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Felly. Okay, a very big thank you to Taufik, our speaker, for an exciting sharing on Writesync, Craft Your Story workshop. Also, a very big thank you to Felly for a very good job in moderating our session today. So, hopefully, all of us have learned something today. So, without further ado, as a token of appreciation from us here in Sabah Education Department, let us watch a video of a mock-up certificate ceremony to our speaker and moderator. So before we end our session for this evening, kindly fill in the feedback form that we have posted in the comment section. Take your time and reflect back on your session with us today, because we need your feedback as it would help us to improve and organize a much more better teacher-centered workshops or webinar. So the attendance link will pop up once you are done filling in the feedback form. With that, we have come to the end of our workshop. Thank you everyone for lending your ears, and hopefully this session brings a great insight to all of you. Please share our link so that many may benefit from it. So before we go, let's watch a little montage. Do like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Till we meet again in our next session. Adieu and goodbye.